the only way to actually manifest anything you want. A video essay by the White Rabbit. I've seen many videos about manifesting, but something stood out to me after watching so many of them that makes them all fundamentally the same. I titled this video the same as they title them, so as to attract the right audience. However, I do not actually subscribe to statements like the title, and you'll see that what you are going to hear in this video is going to be fundamentally different. The main reason for that is that my advice will not feed your ego. Quite the contrary, it will feed your soul. Truth brings you closer to yourself. And in the long run, even if swallowing a truth wasn't pleasant at first, it will ultimately feel the best. 1. Manifesting, as most people understand it, is a spiritual practice that people use to bring about the things they want. The most common methods are affirmations, journaling, or scripting. The first common mistake is thinking that there are times when you aren't manifesting. Truth is, manifestation is more of an ongoing phenomenon than a practice. This is the first key point to actually manifesting what you want. If you believe that manifesting is a practice you can do or not do, you will never be consistent with your intentions, thus, your manifestations. You will express gratitude and positive focus when scripting or doing affirmations, but completely neglect your energy when you think you're okay to do so, because there aren't any consequences. It is simply inauthentic. It is fake. Not to mention that a lot of the times, even those brief times of gratitude are performative and not authentic. God isn't going to take you seriously if you're only on your best behavior when you think you are being watched, but neglect the energy you emit otherwise. It's dishonest. You cannot turn off the laws of the universe, including the law of attraction, nor the law of cause and effect. And you cannot turn off your free will either, which is what you use to claim and choose your manifestations from the pile of things the law of attraction brought towards you. No matter how much the devil wants you to believe otherwise, you always choose. You choose what you attract, human choice or soul choice, and you certainly choose what you claim. 2. People do not have a lot of pure desires. The most common way right now to want something is not even really about wanting that thing, but about negating an experience you already have. That is impure desire or mixed desire. Mixed because it is about resistance to the current reality more than the desire to experience something. The desire to resist and oppose what you have now is a serious case of ungratefulness, which happens to be a very low-frequency vibration, which makes it hard to transcend into higher dimensional mental states, thus attract what you want. Seriously ask yourself this question. If you cannot handle what you have now, how can God trust you with bigger and better things? 3. To understand why higher frequency vibrations, such as gratitude, love, and peace, etc., are crucial to reach in order to manifest freely, imagine that you totally ignored and disacknowledged that you have an arm. Even though it is right there, it's a part of you, a part that helps reach things. You do not even acknowledge its existence. That's exactly how most people treat God, even a lot of spiritual and religious people. When you do not acknowledge objective truths, such as God and everything that comes with acknowledging God, you get stuck in subjective perceptual realities, such as lack, determinism, suffering, etc. You can only be a free manifester from the acknowledgement of God, with which comes gratitude, peace, love, etc., because that's when you are in the most objective state of reality. If you do not acknowledge your arm, you cannot reach for things with it. The same way, if you do not acknowledge God, you cannot manifest freely. 4. The relationship you have with God should be treated as such, an actual relationship. Most people who are into manifesting are selfish and only care about God as long as they get what they want. If you neglect God, you neglect yourself. If you neglect yourself, you are unconsciously manifesting. So in fact, your manifestations always work, according to your state of mind, your frequency. If you only care about spirituality and God as long as your ego is fed, you are never going to reach salvation, and you will ultimately build hell for yourself. Ask yourself this question. Do you actually value God? Do you really care about your soul? Is it important to you? Is being spiritually healthy something you actually value? If you don't, I suggest you stop pretending and stop calling yourself a spiritual person. 5. If the desire to manifest anything you want is coming from the state of believing that you can't, wanting God to prove itself to you, I suggest you go to therapy instead and drop manifesting for a while. Please understand that that intention is a mental health issue and has little to do with spirituality. You need to address the unaddressed traumas you have that caused you to believe the unnatural beliefs that you can't have what you want, and that God needs to prove itself to you. 6. Most people have their values and priorities upside down and backwards. God and spirituality is just another tool for them to cope with life and validate their ego. When you actually understand and love God, you have no need to cope with life or validate your ego. Because God itself is an intrinsic source of fulfillment and self-love. God created your ego. Wanting anyone or anything other than God to validate its needs is a disgrace. And even the words cope with life implies lack of God in your perception, since if you allowed God into your heart, you would love life unconditionally. The following things I'm going to say are dedicated to the people who answered the previous questions with yes. Yes, I actually value God. The first step to actually manifesting anything you want is to drop the idea of manifesting anything you want. Stop caring about your ego too much. Detach, if that word resonates. This doesn't feel painful at all if you value God above your ego. This isn't a rejection of your ego. It is an integration of your more objective self, your soul. Living from your soul is the most objective perspective, and so it includes your ego in it. But living from your ego is exclusive in its nature, making it unhealthy. If you actually value God more, you are more concerned with what you stand for, what you represent, and what you embody than what you get. Are ungratefulness, lack, victimhood, depression, selfishness the things you stand for? Or do you stand for more heavenly things like gratefulness, peace, love, and abundance? The proof of the answer is in your actions. The second step is to value what feels right over what feels good. The forces of the devil has been too successful in making us associate pleasure with wrongness and pain with rightness. And so, what feels good or bad is not the most reliable source. In order to judge what's right and act on it, you need to trust yourself. You need to validate your own discernment and opinions by yourself, without the need for other humans' approval. In order to be connected to your core, so you can actually feel what's right and wrong for you, you need to develop unconditional presence, acceptance, and love for yourself. This is not as difficult as people make it seem, because God loves you, and from that point on, if you do value God above your ego, you won't let your or anyone's ego win against God's judgment. God loves you unconditionally, and so you have no reason not to do the same, both for yourself and in return. At this point, you have probably noticed that in order to do each step, you need to always keep questioning if you seriously value God or not. You need to keep renewing your faith. Are you willing to accept that your human self was never supposed to lead, that it was always supposed to be God? And are you willing to accept that God could never carry out its intentions without you? Thus, are you willing to accept the inherent and constant truths of God, such as oneness, free will, eternity, infinity, peace, etc.? Are you willing to accept that you are not separate from God, but neither are you God itself? Are you willing to accept that you need God and God needs you? Are you willing to accept the things that come with God, such as choice, responsibility, power, abundance, love, etc., and a whole lot of backlash from the opposite forces? Once you value God over everything, the puzzle pieces fall into place. You will be grateful, present, loving, peaceful, powerful, courageous, and so many other things. And once you live according to such values of God, you will inevitably get anything you want. Abundance follows alignment. Keep in mind that this is not about reward or punishment. It is simply the reaping of the seeds you sow. Inherent in sustaining such high-dimensional frequencies lies the inevitable effect of manifesting anything you want. This is not about oppressing the ego, which would be a disgrace just as much as oppressing God. It is about putting the right pieces into their intended places. Stop being selfish. You shall never enter heaven with values of hell. and you shall never be able to manifest anything you want from outside of heaven. Summary 1. Take your ego off the pedestal and worship God instead. Develop a healthy relationship with God and take care of your soul. 2. Evaluate what things you currently stand for/represent based on your actions and beliefs, and intentionally change what you stand for if it's currently not what you want it to be. 3. Develop self-trust and unconditional presence with yourself so you can discern and act on what is right and wrong. Value what feels right or wrong over what feels good or bad. 4. Strive to represent values of heaven, entering it the right way before death. 5. Enjoy being a free manifester. Thank you for watching.